It is week 18 of the NFL. It's the final week of the NFL season. It's the final one thought every game for the regular season. It is 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Mike Hill. This is the Sports Bash. Good to be back with you. Casey Joyner's back for another edition of One Thought Every Game. And we got thoughts all over the place because there's games that have meaning, there are games that have no meaning, but we got history on the line in Philadelphia, or we could have had history on the line in Philadelphia. Casey Joyner. First off, Happy New Year. Another great season of One Thought Every Game. But One Thought Every Game, Week 18. We start in Philadelphia. No starters, no Saquon, no history. The right decision?
Yeah, I think so. It's fun to be. Philadelphia's kind of banged up. And, the thing is, certain teams can handle taking a break and certain teams can't. Son and I were just talking about that, Detroit doesn't want to have to take a break. They want to fine tune their defense, want to do a number of things, and the Chargers talk about doing it because they want to get better. And Houston say we're going to play our starters, but some teams can do it. Look at Andy Reid. Andy Reid, Kansas City, he's rested starters and done just fine during the playoffs. And I think that if you've got the right mindset as a team, you can do that. And I think the Eagles trust that they've got the processes in place that they can do that they don't need to stay fresh. Because I think as much as you want to think about Barkley and his record, what you really want to think of is, can we handle this rest and come back playing at a high level next week, or do we need to keep playing at a high level? And if you're the Eagles, I think you know your process well enough to think you could do that. So Barkley's quest has to come second because you're trying to win a championship. And Barkley, he'll remember the title if he got it in a few years, but he'll always have a Super Bowl ring if he gets it.
Yeah, I mean, and look, the Eagles are in a situation where the game means nothing. They have nothing to play for. The seeding can't change for them. And you would just be sick to your stomach if he, and by the way, Casey, it's not just him. Because if you play him going for a record, you've got to play the offensive line. You've got to play essentially everybody. And you just cannot take that chance of putting him out there. We saw A.J. Brown get hurt in a meaningless game last year. He missed the playoff game last year. I know people don't care about that much because last year's season went off the rails. But you cannot afford to get Barkley or any other starter hurt in a game against the New York Giants.
And if you're, let's say, are you playing Hurts? If you're going to play Barkley, are you playing Hurts? I mean, could he play? He's obviously not going to, but could he play? Would you want to risk that to go, wow, our quarterback who's just coming out, he's just missing a week, and we're going to go into the postseason having him banged up? I can't see the Eagles. That would just be foolish. And again, if you're not playing, if you don't have your entire offense, even if you put your starting offensive line, you got Pickett. It's not the same. And the Giants, look how well they played last week. I mean, this is a team that's still fired up. Can you think that they wouldn't mind getting a few hits in the Eagles, making it harder for them to go to the playoffs? Yeah, I'm sure they would. So, if you're the Eagles, it just, again, you measure it from, do you think as we as an organization can handle this? And they've done it before, so I think they've got the confidence that they can handle that properly. And if they can, and they've been playing well for the most part up until back after what they played last week, and think, look, we're fine-tuned. We don't need to go out. Like Houston, I get Houston. Houston saying we've got to play our starters because as bad as they look, we can't go in the playoffs. So that being the last memory of what we did when we started. You got to do it. But the Eagles have a whole different story.
Yeah, and look, it appears that the Eagles' injury report just came out. Everybody's rest. Nobody's going to play in this game on Sunday. But when you take a look at that record, he's 100 yards away. If he was closer, do you think they'd be more inclined? Last week he got 2,000, and they pulled him right away. There was like 11 minutes left in that game. Theoretically, they could have left him out there and let him get closer. They pulled him immediately. Is that to say we don't even want this to beat us? If it's 25 yards away, we might have to play him.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And you got to get him 2,000. If you pulled him out of the lineup, he said the time where he said, no, let the good kids go get the record. No. If it's 2,000, you have to get that, especially if you're getting it in the 16th game of the season. Okay, well, hey, now I did it in 16. It didn't be 17 to get there. That's a whole different story. And to get that, yeah, you've got to get there. But they didn't. I mean, the way Dallas's run defense was playing last week, he could have got another 50 to 75 yards. And if you were that close, yeah, because then at least you could justify and say, let's put our offense out there for a couple possessions. We get Barker the record, we pull him back out. But it's 100. You got to play him for the whole game. You just can't do that.
We'll get one thought every game in just a minute. Obviously, this game doesn't have meaning this week, but what does 2,000 mean? He's the 9th running back ever for 2,000. And Lane Johnson said that was a goal. They wanted to get him 2,000 yards. So what does that put for Saquon? Saquon, this is an interesting story, the whole thing. He's with the Giants. He's the second pick. That pick was kind of looked at a little side-eyed because you don't take a running back that high. He had a great career with the Giants, but not like he wasn't like a Hall of Fame maybe level player with the Giants. He comes here, he gets to 2,000 yards. What has that 2,000 yards done for his career?
It does. I've done some things for Pro Football Hall of Fame voting before, and made a presentation for Pro Football Hall of Fame voting. And when you're doing that, you're trying to make something for the voters the signature achievement, something that stands out, something that, okay, this is something this person did that either nobody did or very few people did. It's got to be signature. It can't just be he had 5,000 yard seasons, because man, a lot of people had 5,000 yard seasons or something like that. It's got to be something that really stands out. That's what it is. It's the kind of thing to where if Barca does this, they go in a Super Bowl. Let's say let's say they go and win the Super Bowl, and he has a great Super Bowl or a playoff run and gets there and does like Riggins with the Redskins in '82. If that happens, this is the kind of signature thing that gets him into Canton. And it's one of those things where his Giants record, I mean, as good as he was there, that's not it. It's got some good starts, it's got some good moments, but he's going to need some signature moments to get into the Hall of Fame. So it's one of those things. It's a difference maker between, do you have a strong Hall of Fame resume, or you are just a guy who gets close and isn't quite there? And that's why getting it this year and having playoff success is a big thing for Barca. Is one of those things that when they talk Canton in 20 years or something, or 15 years, it's going to be something where he comes up.
All right, game doesn't mean anything this weekend for Philadelphia, but as we watch the games this weekend, and you're an Eagles fan, would you rather match up with Green Bay or Washington?
I think I would rather, the way that Jaden Daniels is playing right now, and taking nothing away from Jordan Love, the way Jaden Daniels is playing right now, I don't want to face him. I do not want to face him. I'd much rather
even
face
knowing
Green Bay.
that Jordan Love went on the road last year and won a game in the playoffs?
Yeah, even with that, Jaden Daniels was playing. He had a great start to the season, so much so that it was, wow, he's a rookie. He's in the top 5 in the MVP odds. Like, this is unusual. And then he got that injury against Chicago, got the rib injury in the first quarter. He wasn't the same quarterback for the next month. He kind of hit the rookie wall, and you think, okay, well, he's hit the rookie wall. Usually don't bounce back from that. He's bounced back from that, and they're playing exceptionally well. He's the kind of guy. It's one of those things where, Love is a system player, and they've got a really good system, really good play call. I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback, but I mean, LaFleur gets the most out of him, and Jaden Daniels just playing at a level that is beyond that. And I don't want to see anything in Jaden Daniels. I'd much rather play Green Bay this week.
Casey Joyner's segment, One Thought Every Game, is brought to you by Elite Acura. Score incredible savings all month long at Elite Acura, Route 73, Maple Shade, online, EliteAcura.com. All right, not a lot of elite matchups this week, but we've got some ones that have some meaning. The Saturday games, let's start there. We got a game where Baltimore is an 18-point favorite. The Ravens can clinch the AFC North and the 3 seed with a winner or tie or a Steelers loss. So big games for all the NFC North teams. Let's start there. They're an 18-point favorite, Ravens over Cleveland.
There are actually, I was just looking out through the books for research an article, and they're 20.5 at 1. They're 20.5 favorites at 1.98. And by the way, there are almost no prop bets. In fact, I can't find a prop bet on the board for this game, because I think the sportsbooks realize we can't properly manage this risk because the Ravens are that good. It's at home. They hate Cleveland. They need to win. They've been playing really well. They've outscored their opponents, 100 to I think it was 100 to 36 over the last 3 weeks. And Cleveland scored they're scoring single-digit points per game. This is absolutely going to be a blowout. This is the most lopsided game of the year. I'm going to take Baltimore. They would be, if I had a 1 to 10 confidence, it's 10.
By the way, the 18-point favorite for Baltimore, it is the largest spread in Ravens history. They were a 17-point favorite one other time. So this is the biggest point spread in Ravens history. The night game on Saturday night, it's Bengals and Steelers. The Steelers can clinch the AFC North and the 3 seed with a win and a Ravens loss. But the Bengals have a shot to get in the playoffs here all of a sudden. So who has the better day Saturday? Is it Bengals or Steelers?
I still don't know why they didn't put this game first, because then Pittsburgh has definite motivation to play, and then then Baltimore wins, and they still
I think they want Joe Burrow in the playoffs.
I think they want Joe Burrow in prime time. That's for sure. They want him there. I think that's a big part of it, and it's too bad, because I think I don't know that Pittsburgh. Harbaugh has said we want the 5 seed for Chargers. He said, yeah, if Pittsburgh loses and Chargers win, he said, I want the 5 seed. I don't know that the Steelers care that much. They're banged up, and I think they want to play better and all that and get healthy. But I don't think that it's going to mean quite as much to them. I don't see them going all out to try to win. And the Bengals right now, the Steelers secondary is atrocious right now. It's one of the worst in the league. Burrow gets his 3 touchdown passes, Bengals win.
If Burrow gets this team to the playoffs, 42 touchdowns he has now. He throws 3, 4. Is Joe Burrow the MVP?
You could make a strong case that he should, because what are the Bengals without him? And the Bengals are a 3-win team without him. If you put an average quarterback out there, they would be a terrible team. I know that Chase and Higgins are really good and all that, but I mean, that's been an atrocious team. He's the only reason they're as good as they are. You could easily make the case that he should be one of the top picks. I mean, take it nothing away from Allen and Jackson. He should be right up there with them. And I don't think they'll make it, but it's one of those things where if you can throw a 45 touchdown pass and you seem like, oh, by the way, the AFC should not want him. AFC should be begging Kansas City to just not even take the field, because if you're an AFC team and you see the Bengals in the playoffs, you're scared because they can get a shoot against anybody and win.
One thought every game. Sunday slate, Panthers-Falcons. Falcons can clinch the South with a win and a Buccaneers loss versus the Saints with a win. For the Falcons to be their first winning season since 2017. That's a long time ago for Atlanta. They're playing Carolina, who's been a kind of a pain in the butt for teams.
They have. The problem for Carolina is they lost Chuba. Chuba Hubbard, once he left, their ground game is just nowhere near the same. He's not a great back, but he gave them a steady presence in the ground game. And Bijan Robinson, Raheem Morris said this. He said that if it weren't for Saquon Barkley having the season that he's having, everyone would have a better idea how good Bijan Robinson is. He's not quite at Saquon's level this year. He's like only a half step behind. He's having a really good season. And that's the sort of difference maker that I think is going to give Atlanta this game, because they can get that much out of Robinson, and whatever they get out of Penix and the rest of the offense, that's fine. But Robinson can carry them to a win that the Panthers can't match.
Commanders and Cowboys. Commanders, they're in. The Cowboys are out. So this game really no meaning here. Washington playing for a little momentum to get them. They could be the 6 or the 7, I guess. If they lose the game, they would fall to 7 and have to play Philadelphia.
If you think for Washington, though, the Rams have already said we're not playing Stafford, so they're not going to play the starters. They're mailing it in. They're probably going to lose that game. If Washington wins, they get a different matchup. So if you're Washington, do you want the 6 seed? Do you want to avoid Philly? If I'm Washington, I want to avoid Philly. I want to go ahead and do that. So I think Washington's going to play harder to win. And you've got Jaden Daniels playing like he's playing, and the Cowboys. They fell apart last week. Their defense started making the same mistakes they were making earlier this year. They're just really undisciplined defense. But when they lose CeeDee Lamb, that was like the one thing that was keeping their offense going. I don't think they have anything. So I think Washington plays hard to win. I think they do.
All right, Bears and Packers, obviously same situation for the Packers. They are playing for a chance to move out of the 7 to move up to the 6. The Bears season has been a disaster.
It has, and I mean, they made the coaching change middle of the season, and it helped their offense momentarily, but they only scored 45 points over the past 4 weeks combined. They're just not doing very well. One of the things is that Chicago and Green Bay, you got a lot of rivalry games. That's one of the best rivalry games in the league. I don't think they just really don't like each other, and I think that Green Bay is going to play hard for that purpose. And again, if they win and Washington loses, if Washington wants to tank it, then Green Bay plays the Rams in the first round, and they don't have to play Philadelphia. I think if you're Green Bay at Washington, you're both trying to avoid the matchup at Philly. So I think the Packers are going to play hard and they win.
One thought every game with Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Let's go to Texans and Titans. You mentioned the Texans. They're trying to turn their momentum around a little bit. They have been a team that I don't think anybody's really thinking of. And the Titans, obviously, it's been a lost season for them. But you look at it here, the Titans are actually a favorite in this game.
They are, and the Titans have done better on offense and such. And the thing is, the Texans, Bill Belichick said in one of his recent podcasts, I think the Coach Show, he said that the Texans, when you're playing in that kind of a weak division, you just don't get battle tested for the playoffs. I did a study for a book I wrote years ago, the same thing, and it showed that if you play in a tough division, you tend to do much better in the playoffs than if you play in a weak division. So Houston wants to get better than what they were. But I think Ryans will go out there and say, I'm going to play my starters for a couple, 3 series. okay, the starters played well. We know we're looking good. We know we're playing well. All right, we're done. Now we're going to go ahead and put the backups in. I think that's what will happen. And I think that's going to be enough for them to get them a win. But this is one of the closest games of the week. It's a coin flip. I'll take Houston just because I think they're a little better early on.
By the way, the Texans are the 4 seed. They'll play the 5 seed. That is all clinched for them. That's partially why they are a dog in this game, I would imagine. Jags and Colts, same thing. You got the Colts here. They are a 4.5-point favorite over Jacksonville. A lost season for the Jags. We'll see what happens with Doug Peterson. But what about Shane Steichen, the former Eagles offensive coordinator? Is he in trouble?
You think so? But he's asked, what's the whole thing about, hey, players late for meetings? Well, sometimes players are late for meetings. If you're Parcells and you win the Super Bowls and you're joking about LT being late for meeting back in the day, you can do that. You're Steichen. It's like, Steichen, you don't have Super Bowl wins to lean back on, so you don't have that kind of you can't make that okay. And they've had so many bad things. I think he could be in trouble. I bet he doesn't get canned. I bet they have changes up elsewhere in the organization. I bet he doesn't. But that loss last week, that's not, you don't just forget that in a week. Like, you remember JT fumbles the ball right before the end zone, and then like they bounce back the next week. This is not that. This is this collapse of the team. The Jaguars, by the way, they've won 2 of the last 4 games. They're still playing hard. They've won 5 of the last 6 matchups against the Colts, too. I think they'll go out there and play tough, and I think Indianapolis, I think there are a number of players in that team who probably already have their cars warmed up, so I'm taking the Jags.
All right, Bills and Patriots could be the end of the road for another coach in New England there. There's been some buzz up there. The Bills are favored by 2.5. The Patriots have, the Bills have basically, they've clinched the 2 seed here. They have nothing to play for. So this is another one of those games where you might not see a lot of players from Buffalo, and New England just playing out the string.
Yeah, and I wouldn't play anybody in fantasy football on either side of this game. If you're in any kind of a Week 18 fantasy league, which you should not be in the first place, but if you are, stay away from this game entirely because Patriots talk about they might not play Drake May. I mean, they could throw anybody out there. Josh Allen's he will start the game, and they'll have the stars out for a little bit because he wants to keep the consecutive start string going. I get that, and you play for a drive or two. I can see doing that and just get off the field, but I think New England plays the full game. I think I'm going to, again, a coin flip. I'm going to take the Patriots because they're at home, and I think the Bills won't keep the stars out there for long enough to make a big impact. But Gerard Mayo, I would be surprised if he doesn't lose his job the way that they played this year because this team has not shown any progress throughout the season after that. Remember, they beat the Bengals in Week 1. That's been downhill since.
One thought every game, Saints and Bucks. Now, this game does have meaning for Tampa because they can clinch the South with a win or an Atlanta loss. So they have a chance to go from the wild card to hosting the game. That's a big change for Tampa Bay. So this game, they got to play their guys.
They do. And the thing is, their offense, they were great early in the year, and then they lost Godwin and they lost Evans for a while. And then they got Evans back, and now their offense is back to what it is. They've been the best running team arguably in the league over the past 5 weeks. They are just a fantastic ground game. Don't know about Bucky Irving playing this week, but it looks like he will. But they've got Jalen McMillan's turned into an impact pass catcher. I mean, this is a really good offense. The Saints might get Carr and Olave back this week, but Kamara's dealing with a groin injury. The Bucs rush defense, the last 2 weeks, only allowed 70 rushing yards. I mean, this is a team going toward the postseason on a high. I think they blow New Orleans out.
All right, one thought every game, Kansas City and Denver. Now, Kansas City, this is interesting. They have nothing to play for, but they also have a bye next week, too, as the 1 seed. So they want to sit their guys 2 weeks. It looks like they will. Wentz will start. The Broncos can clinch a playoff berth with a win, tie, or Cincinnati loss tie, plus a Miami loss tie. They haven't made the playoffs in 8 years. So this is a big moment for them as well.
I think Kansas City at some level obviously would like to knock Denver out of the playoffs. It would be to say, hey, we're not a division rival. You want to establish your dominance. I would think they would do that. But Andy Reid Bill Walsh used to say you can get emotional for games only so many times a year. What you really need to do to be a success as a coach is success as a team is set a standard that you play at every single week no matter what. Kansas City does that. I don't think they're worried about having 2 weeks off because they know they've got that standard. This is where we are. We're at this standard every week no matter what. So they'll rest a bunch of their players. The Broncos need it. The Broncos have Nix and Sutton playing really well. The defense has been good for the most part. They've got a solid run game. I think they do enough. This is a really well-coached team. I think Denver will have I would be surprised if it wasn't a double-digit point win because Andy Reid is going to be like, look, we don't care enough about this game to try to play harder.
Right. One thought every game. Casey Joyner from The Athletic here. Seahawks and Rams. You mentioned it. The Rams sitting their guys. The Seahawks have been eliminated, so a game that essentially has no meaning here.
I think it has meeting with Mike McDonald, though. Mike, the Seahawks head coach, he comes in from Michigan, and he wanted to establish a certain thing. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play good defense. Early in the year, it's like, oh, wow, you're not playing good defense, and you're passing the ball. And he really fought to say, that's not who we are. We're going to be who we are. And they get late in the year. They can't make the playoffs, but they're playing very well of late, and they're getting that type of thing. And he's got momentum going right at this moment where the team is playing. This is what we want heading into the postseason. I think McDonald's going to be very fired up and say, let's end the season on the right note. We don't make the postseason, but we beat the Rams. We get another win. We look like we're headed in the right direction. I think it's very motivational for him. So the Seahawks will play really hard in this game. Again, McVay has already said Stafford's going to sit, and I think probably going to sit Everett, Kyron, and Kupp, and Nakua. They're probably going to sit everybody. That's the case. I think Seattle gets a pretty convincing one.
By the way, if Seattle wins, it would be the second time in franchise history they win 10 games and do not make the playoffs. 10-win team not making the playoffs. That's a tough pill to swallow. Chargers and Raiders. Obviously, the Raiders are completely done. The Chargers, interesting team. Do you want to face that? They got a really good defense. It hasn't been good as late. One final test and tune-up for the Chargers. They will be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the thing is, their motivation comes down to this Pittsburgh win. I think Pittsburgh doesn't win, and I think the Chargers will have something to play for. And Harbaugh has publicly stated, I mean, people are thinking, oh, is he playing around this, that, and the other? That he'll play for the 5 seed if the Steelers lose. I think he will play for the 5 seed. I think that he's that old school. He's a Bo Schembechler guy. I mean, he's an old school Michigan, hard-nosed football. Well, we play to win just like what Dan Campbell did. You play to win the game just because you play to win the game. I think the Chargers will play hard because of that. And plus, I also think they want to get J.K. Dobbins. He's back last week, and you got him in 1 week. And I know it's like he's an injury-prone guy, but you really want to get him into a groove heading into the playoffs. Hey, I want to get him 12, 15 carries. Just make sure he's feeling battle-tested when we get into the playoffs. And the Raiders going to fire their head coach again. I mean, guys, it's not like changing underwear. You got to stick with the coach every so often, But they're probably going to because that's how bad of a team they are. And I think the Chargers win just because they set the higher standard.
All right, Dolphins, Jets, one thought every game. The Dolphins can clinch a playoff berth with a win, and they need a Broncos loss. You don't think Denver's going to lose, but the Dolphins will play the Jets, and the Jets season has been a disaster. The Dolphins would be the fourth team in the Super Bowl era to make the playoffs after starting the season 2-6. They would have rebounded to get there, but will it happen?
I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but McDaniel's going to be. They've got problems this week because they don't have Tua, and they've got Tyler Huntley out there. But Huntley ran for 7 rushes for I want to say 84 yards and a touchdown. I forget what it is. He had a really good fantasy game because of it. Nobody started him, but he still had really good fantasy numbers. They'll run the ball there. McDaniel. He has a history of being a gross to successful, one of the most creative run play calling coaches in the league. Since Tua got healthy, he's gone really pass heavy, but now he's going to go back to being run heavy. He's something he'll be entirely comfortable with. I think they'll get a lot from Achane, and I think they've got some other players look at some things out of Tua, and they'll get Huntley in there. And the Jets, they showed they're going to just mail it in. I think Aaron Rodgers may get some stats and things, but they he's already talked about, Rodgers talked about going, I need to put my foot in the sand and all. That's fine. He'll get some numbers. He'll want to throw, get a touchdown pass or two if he can, but I think the Jets will throw in the towel by halftime.
What a disappointing season for them. All right, Niners, Cardinals, a game with no meaning at all here. This one, both teams eliminated from playoff contention, and for the Niners, just the end of a disappointing season. For the Cardinals, they were a surprise team. I don't think people thought they'd be in playoff contention. They did get eliminated, but the Cardinals team could build off a win like this.
They're both well-coached teams. The Niners offense played really well on Monday night, but it's the Lions, and the Lions tend to get the shootouts, and that's why the Niners offense looked pretty good. The Cardinals defense isn't great, but they've held 3 of the last 6 foes to 17 or fewer points. The Niners won't have Brock Purdy. They're going to have Josh Dobbs under center. So, like the rocket scientist, but he's not the same level of quarterback. And Gannon's going to have this team playing at a very high, the motivation has never been a problem for them. They don't have Connor, so that's a problem, but they do have some other big play players. I just trust Kyler Murray and being at home over Josh Dobbs, and especially because the Niners offense was terrible before last week, and I think that's more who they are than what they were on Monday night. So I'm going to take the Cardinals by a couple points.
All right, one thought every game. This one matters. Vikings, Lions. The winner gets a bye and the number 1 seed. The loser has to pick up the pieces and then go on the road and play next week. It's in Detroit. They are banged up. This Vikings team, I think, is starting to impress people. The Lions 3-point favorite, so the odds makers are saying the game is pretty even.
Yeah, 3-point home favorite. That means that talent-wise, I think they're very even. I think this shows the NFL needs to get to a point where you don't assign seeds simply by, the division winner shouldn't just get a 4 seed. The division winner should be at least 7 seed if you're only getting, if you've got a few wins and things. I think they should frame it like that. Having said that, the Lions, they've scored 34 or more points in each of the past 4 games. They turned the ball over twice in that span. I mean, that's who they are. In fact, they've scored 31 or more points 9 times this year, and they only have 3 giveaways in those 9 contests. I mean, when they get on a roll, they can really, really hurt you. Problem for Minnesota is Minnesota, they're 14-0 when they allow 30 or fewer points. They're 0-2 when they give up 30 or more. That's a big problem for them, that you can get to 30. Now, Flores' defense might get a turnover against Detroit. They've forced a giveaway in every game this year, so they might get some turnovers, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think the Lions, if it's a shootout game like I think it's going to be, I think the Lions just have more firepower than the Vikings. And I think this game could easily see 60 points, but I see it more like a 34-31 Detroit win than I do a 34-31 Minnesota win.
All right, that is one thought every game for this week 18, the final one. Not a whole lot of matchups with some meaning. You got some seeding stuff. You got the big one on Sunday night. You got a couple games on Saturday that do have the meaning. But, of course, the regular season is now in the books. And when we turn our page to the playoffs, Casey Joyner will be back next week. I think Josh told me Monday and Friday next week we will have one thought every game for the playoff edition for 2025. Casey Joyner from The Athletic. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
All right, there he is. Casey Joyner, everybody, here on the Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. That is one thought every game for the 2025 season. Good to have you with us. He's brought to you by Elite Acura. Score incredible savings all month long at Elite Acura. Visit them on Route 73 in Maple Shade or online at eliteacura.com.